You're stuck at home in quarantine. 5 o'clock. Why not have a drink with me?
Hey everybody, happy Friday night. Good to see you, good to be with you. Excited to have a drink and welcome in the weekend. As has become my Friday night tradition, we're going to start with a 50-50 shot just to get things going and loosen things up. And I was actually reading, I'll tell you more about this book that I was reading in a moment, but I was reading a book and came across a new one that I'm excited to try tonight. And it involves the following. First, it has Suze, S-U-Z-E, which is like a bitter liqueur made from gentian root. It's French. And then the Amaro is Amaro Lucano. And so it's 50-50, equal parts of Suze and Amaro Lucano, and they call it the Susan Lucci. Get it? Susan Lucci, the famous soap opera actress. So we're going to do 50-50 of each of these. Suze is nice and bitter, but has a little bit of sweetness to it, a little bit of herbalness to it. And then Amaro Lucano is like super good. Pretty sweet on the spectrum of Amari. We're going to do 50-50 there. We're going to use my Boston Street Map rocks glass. Give it a quick little stir. And get things going. Hope you're all doing well. Looks like we've got Tom Kelly in the chat. SV Untangled, that's Philippe and/or Carolyn. We've got Megan in the chat, and it looks like Keith just joined us also. To the Susan Lucci, cheers. That's fantastic. So good. The Suze kind of brings down the sweetness of the Amaro Lucano in a really interesting way. It's almost like taking an Amaro that's a little on the sweet side for my taste and giving it more bitterness and sort of punching you in the face with that bitterness. This is really good. The Susan Lucci. I love that. All right, so here's what... let's kick things off with a little bit of a confession that I have, because I'm feeling some guilt. And so here's the deal. So I came across a cool thing happening this evening that's being put on by 11 Madison Park. So some of you might know 11 Madison Park is this famous, super fancy fine dining restaurant in Manhattan. And they're closed right now because of the pandemic. They haven't been doing any takeout or anything like that. They're just totally closed, but they've been putting on these like small events via Zoom. And I came across one tonight where they're doing basically like an Amaro cocktail class by their head bartender from 7 to 8 o'clock Eastern time this evening. And it's like $10 to get the Zoom link, and then all the proceeds go to, I guess, the staff of the restaurant. So this is right up my alley, and all of the cocktails are featuring the Amaro Montenegro, which is a famous Amaro. It's among the best-selling Amari in Italy. That should tell you something. And you know, it's one of the bigger Amari that you can find out in the wild. And so I didn't have any of this on hand, which is fine because I thought I have, you know, a dozen other Amaros and I can, just sub in something that's close. But the sort of, perfectionist piece of me wanting to do everything exactly as if they're building these drinks that uses the specific Amaro and it's balanced in just the right way, I really want to hit all of those notes. And so it was kind of bugging me a little bit. And then the other thing that happened today was that we recently ordered something on Amazon that we had to return. We ordered we have these like recessed lights on, can you see it? In our kitchen, and one of them is out, and we just, actually two of them recently went out. We only had one replacement bulb, so we needed to order more bulbs. Ordered them from Amazon. Turns out we got the wrong size. Got a refund or whatever, but had to return them. So I had to bring these light bulbs back to just like a UPS store, where you literally just give it to them, they scan your email or whatever that you got that you said you're returning this to Amazon, and you're on your way, and they ship it back. So they make it really easy, but I had to go out for this. And so I go out, and then I'm at the UPS store, I'm pulling in the lot, and then I'm like, oh yeah, right next to the UPS store is this like pretty good liquor store that probably has what I need and has the Amaro Montenegro. So I had a moment of weakness and went in that extra store. I had my mask. I was like careful and everything, but Helen gave me a little bit of a hard time, saying that not having the perfect type of Amaro amidst a public health emergency maybe wasn't cause to, increase my risk and go into an extra store. And so I feel a little bit of guilt, and this is my confession and my mea culpa about that. But I did end up doing it, and I got it. Here it is, the Amaro Montenegro. And I'm really excited for this class tonight. I luckily had all the other ingredients that they have that are needed. They sort of had an overview, and then after you sign up, they send you the Zoom link, and then they send you sort of the full ingredient list, and we'll see. I think we're going to be making 3 different cocktails that involve the Amaro Montenegro, so I'm really excited about that. And I'll definitely report back. So, this morning, I was reading this really cool book called Last Call, which was a Christmas gift to me, very, very kindly gifted to me in Christmas by my in-laws. Thank you, Alice and Roger, for this book. And it's by one of my favorite cocktail writers, Brad Thomas Parsons, who had a pretty profound impact on my life. He first wrote the book Bitters, which got me into making my own homemade bitters and launching my Beard Bitters bitter line. And then since then, he's written the book Amaro, which is all about Amaro. And over the last 2 years of my life, I've gotten super into Amaro, and that helped with that too. So I've always been a fan of this guy, and then his most recent project, this book Last Call, is really about 2 things, and there's sort of like a double meaning to the terms last call. So basically he went across the country to different famous bars and bartenders across the United States, people that have been deeply embedded in the cocktail renaissance over the last 15 years. And he spent a night with them and basically wanted to know 2 things. First, for you and your bar, what is your last call ritual? How do you close up the bar? What do you do after you're done with your shift? Is there some sort of nightly drink that you have with your staff? Do you go home? What do you do? Let's do that together. So there's the literal last call at the bar. And then there's a second meaning, which is that he asked each of them if you could only have one last drink in your time on Earth, what would your last drink be? Sort of a play on the common question around what would you want your last meal to be, right? What would you want your last drink or your last cocktail, any drink, to be? And so it's a really cool book where some of them are kind of little essays about his time with the bartender at the bar. Some of them are just interviews. And it's also beautiful. There's just really beautiful photography. That's my guy Damon Bolte, who's my favorite guy from Grand Army in Brooklyn. But anyway, one of the early ones has these 2 women from the bar Nightcap in New York. And one of them, during her time at Donna, which is a bar in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, invented this 50-50 shot, the Susan Lucci, that we're enjoying now. So that's the first connection to this, which is, I'm going to return to that. This is one of my new favorites. So good. So that's cool. And just to give her credit, it is Lauren Carvu, and she did it with her teammate at this bar, Amy Kofsky. So these 2 wonderful bartenders brought this great new thing to my life. And then in another chapter of the book, he interviews and spends time with the famous Toby Cecchini. Now, Toby Cecchini, his claim to fame was he was a bartender at the Odeon, the famous bistro in Tribeca in New York City with the famous neon Odeon sign in the 1980s when that's when Robert De Niro and Harvey Keitel had a regular table, and David Letterman was coming in, and all the New York who's who. He has a story about Mick Jagger coming in and having a $15,000 tab, and so it's this really sort of highfalutin awesome rubbing elbows with the famous folks in New York City. But anyway, he's telling the story about one of his friends at the time was hanging out with a bunch of her friends from San Francisco, and they were apparently going around and they were telling her all about this new drink that's been going around all the gay leather bars in San Francisco called the Cosmopolitan. And what the Cosmopolitan was some whale vodka, some Rose's lime juice, some Rose's grenadine in a martini glass. And she's saying that's all the rage, and he tried it and he's like, oh, this is kind of crazy, this Rose's stuff is nuts, but I think there might be something here. And so what he ends up doing at the Odeon is he's like, oh, okay, so I've been playing with some more fresh squeezed juices. And this is early in the cocktails from basically from Prohibition up to the 1980s, when vodka overtook everything and was in a really sad state, especially through the 70s and into the 80s. He's starting to play with some ingredients some more. He had some cranberry juice at the bar from the very popular Cape Codder cocktail. And so he's saying, all right, and he also got this this new liquor called Absolute Citron, where they're putting the flavor right in the vodka. What an idea that is. And so he's like, oh, the Absolute Citron might work really well with, some fresh squeezed lime juice, and we're going to put in, the cranberry juice, and we're going to make this amazing cocktail. Don't forget the Cointreau. Put in the Cointreau to get that, even more orange and sweet flavor, and then we're going to make what we know today as the iconic Cosmopolitan. And what's cool about this story is that I feel like a lot of the cocktails that I talk about or read about, we know a cocktail got popular and we're not exactly sure who created it or how created it or what that trajectory looked like. But being that this is much more recent and this new cocktail in the 1980s, we can follow the trajectory of the Cosmopolitan to what it is today. And we, as you and I know, it turned into a really, really popular and prolific cocktail that has sort of withstood the test of time from the 1980s and is still very popular today, right? It's this pretty pink color. It has sort of a fancy name without being too fancy, and it's cool. So anyway, he invents this drink. People start liking it and drinking it up at the Odeon. Other people start hearing about it. Suddenly his friends are coming in and ordering Cosmopolitans at the bar. Then people he don't know are coming in and ordering Cosmopolitans at the bar. Then other bars in New York City are ordering Cosmopolitans. And it goes that way into the 90s. And then the other turning point for the Cosmopolitan is a little HBO show that you might have heard of called Sex and the City, which then even took it even further. And it really is the perfect cocktail for the Sex and the City crew, in that it is this pretty pink drink. It is a cocktail. We get to drink it and look cool and refined and hobnob in New York. And it's it's a pretty good drink, and a drink that I saw just got a nice thumbs up from my mom. Hey Peggy, it is her drink of choice. I was on a Zoom with her last night and saw her sipping on her Cosmopolitan. So this is all to say that this very famous Toby Cecchini, creator of the Cosmopolitan as we know it today, which was a riff on another drink that came to him, that was pretty close, but that he really perfected. He has this, what he calls it, this albatross of the Cosmopolitan following him around. But when he was asked, what would your last drink be? If you could, if your last drink on your last day on Earth, what would you want to drink? And he's saying, well, it wouldn't be the Cosmopolitan. Not because it's not good, but, because it's just, it's not, it's been following him around and just, being such a big influence on there. Mom's fave. So he instead puts forth this other drink. And so this other drink that he describes that he was at his at a new bar. He had moved on from the Odeon at this point. And basically, he had a young woman come in and asked her what she wanted, and she goes, I want something that is that has whiskey and bitters and is not even bitter. I want something bitter. I want something with whiskey that's really bitter. And she goes, do you know what Amaro is? And he's like, yes, I'm like a very famous, well-reputed bartender. I know what Amaro is. And so he goes about making this drink that he describes as like, strong, sweet, and bitter. And he's been playing with this other thing called Kina Kina from Beaujolais, which is another type. It's sort of like a sweet, bitter orange peel Amaro. And he uses some rye. He's been playing around with the Suze. So Suze is going to make another appearance in this drink. And he puts it all together. He puts some sweet vermouth in it, spices it up with a little allspice dram, makes this like really amazing cocktail, and serves it to her. And she's like, whoa, this cocktail is amazing. What do you call this? And he's like, he's thinking I just made it up. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't have anything. And so he goes, I don't know, it's up to you. What do you want to call it? And she goes, the Erin. And he just thinks to himself, oh no, don't tell me your name is Erin and you just named this drink after yourself and now I have this like next famous drink that I'm going to call the Erin. He goes, your name's Erin? Like, he's just thinking like, I hate that. That's the worst, that you're just like naming this drink after yourself. So he has this like initial thought. He doesn't say that. He's very polite to this young woman named Erin. And he thinks, all right, like later on, I will come up with another name for this. Don't worry about it. And of course, he never did. And so now he has this drink called the Erin. My sister Erin is in the chat. Congrats to you, Erin, for having this drink named after you. I bet you never knew. And we're going to make this drink right now. So let's get to it. We're going to start with 2 ounces of rye. I'm going to be using my favorite in-house rye. And as we build this, again, we're thinking about it's got strong, sweet, and bitter. There's no fruit juices or anything like that. No sour or tartness, really. But strong, bitter, and sweet. We're going to use half an ounce of the Beaujolais Kina Kina. Again, this sort of bitter orange peel liqueur. We're going to use half an ounce of our Suze, the gentian root liqueur. It is also nice and bitter. So already we have 2 ounces of rye, and then we have 2 of these super bitter, a little bit of sweetness, but mostly bitter orange peel, bitter gentian root liqueurs there. And then we're going to take half an ounce of sweet vermouth. And then finally we're going to spice it up a little bit with some allspice dram. Got my St. Elizabeth allspice dram right here. And the recipe calls for 5 dashes. So I'm going to call that about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an ounce. A touch less than that. All right. And that's that. So we're going to add some ice in here. And let's stir it up. So kind of cool. We have a cocktail from the inventor of the Cosmopolitan that is very far from the Cosmopolitan. No fruit juice. Whiskey's about as far from vodka as you can get. and a lot of bitterness in there. At least the cranberry juice and the Cosmo can give you a little bit of bitter flavor. And I'm going to strain this onto one large ice cube. And the garnish for this is apparently tormantobi, both in orange peel and a lemon peel. So we're going to take both. We'll express them both over the drink. Give them a little twist around, give it the Ryan Kelly smack, and then just kind of twist them up and drop it in. And here we have the Erin. Cheers. That is a shockingly balanced drink for something that has so many different weird things going on. So you get like a touch of the bitterness from the that sort of Suze flavor, but the Suze is not super powerful in a way that I wondered it might be. Yeah, it's not super orangey, despite the Kina. Not super spicy, despite the allspice dram. You got a little bit of that vermouth in there, but it's not overpowering either. And you don't get a lot of rye punch either. This is just like a super like well-rounded, balanced drink, which is the trademark of any good cocktail. And I'll let you know what he said about this. So when he's answering this question, what's the last thing you'd want to drink before you die? He said, if I'm on my deathbed, I'm sure going to have something strong. You're looking back on your life, so I would want something strong, sweet, and bitter. And I think this really hits the mark. Very, very good. Toby can now be found in the Long Island Bar in Brooklyn. See this cool picture of the outside of his bar there. Looks like a diner. Love it. All right. So, strong recommend on this book. I'm continuing to make my way through it. It's been really great. Here's out one of my favorite Boston bars, Drink, which I appreciated. And I'm learning about some new drinks this way. So this has been fun.
It's 5 o'clock. Why not have a drink with me?
So I'll let you all know how my 7 o'clock Mara Montenegro cocktail class goes with 11 Madison Park. Looking forward to that. Hope you all have a good Friday afternoon if you're on the West Coast, Friday evening if you're anywhere on Earth, and looking forward to the weekend. We're expecting some thunderstorms in a little bit, but it's nice and warm today, a little bit humid, so thunderstorms might help with that, but I'm pretty sure we broke 70, and hopefully we'll have a couple of good days ahead of us. Cheers, everyone.